Oh, we've got a lot of people joining now. This is great.
So before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that today is the 20th anniversary of the September 11 terror attacks in the US. This is something that a farmer in Ohio did by planting different crops to acknowledge the day. And obviously, this remains a terrible and incomprehensible attack on civilians. And so today, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. So, thank you everyone for joining the 2021 GRI Virtual Conference. If you can see the chat, I know some of you maybe move things around so you can't see it, but the chat is just a great way to stay engaged with other people and potentially the speakers as well. So just as we get started, everyone who is able to in the chat, can you just go in and tell us where you're from? Denver? Houston, Texas? Barcelona, Spain? Brazil, Louisiana, Arlington, Virginia, another Houston, Scottsdale, Arizona, Toronto, Canada, Arizona, Rotterdam, Toronto, New York, Iowa, UK, Toronto, New Mexico, Istanbul, Denmark, Toronto. Oh, this is great. Cornwall, Warsaw, Poland, Israel, Cardiff, in Wales in the UK, Germany, Pennsylvania. This is great. So many, so many people from all over the world. So thank you all for being here today. I want to start out today with an announcement that we're really excited about. So this is my son Bryson and his big brother Connor. Bryson's always the happiest when Connor's with him, and here Connor's reading to him. But I want to talk just for a minute about Bryson's diagnostic journey. So the first thing that we got, the first diagnosis we got when Bryson was 2 or 3 months old was hypotonia. And then maybe a year and a half later, when they realized that in addition to his physical disabilities, he had a number of cognitive disabilities. So he got delay. And it took us nearly 10 years to find a diagnosis for Bryson. And the diagnosis really was just the name of the gene that Bryson had, which was GRIN-1. And so this was fantastic for our family. It allowed us to connect with other GRIN-1 families around the world, and we went to meetups with them in the Denver area, in Pittsburgh area, and in Toronto and in New Jersey. But we also came to realize that GRIN-1 was really part of a larger group of disorders, a broader group that we call GRIN disorder. And so when Denise and I and some other GRIN-1 families got together to form Cure GRIN, it was really important to us that we recognize that this should be set up as something that involved all of these different GRIN genes. And so that was built into our purpose right from the beginning. But more recently, we've come to understand from researchers and talking to other families that even GRIN disorder is part of a broader group of disease that we call GRI disorder. So what is GRI? Well, GRI stands for glutamate ionotropic receptors. And so in the GRIN genes, they code the NMDA receptor. So GRIN stands for glutamate ionotropic receptor, NMDA. And then there's GRIA, which is for AMPA, and kainate, which is for GRIC. And so we know of currently at least 9 different genes, variants in 9 different genes that can lead to the single gene diseases. And there may be others. There may be diseases in GRIN3 and GRIN2C, but these are still kind of investigations. So these are what we know of today, and the groups that we've made contact with. So one of the things that we've really been talking about over the last year is how Cure GRIN should work with this broader group of GRI disorders. And what we've come to realize in talking with our scientific advisory board is that working more closely and incorporating these GRI genes will really accelerate our path to treatments and cures for all GRI disorders. And so here's why. The AMPA and NMDA receptors in particular are part of a single mechanism. So the NMDA receptor doesn't get activated if the AMPA receptor doesn't trigger it. We know that for all of these GRI genes, there's a significant overlap in researchers. There are similar symptoms among the diseases, and we believe there's also similar paths to a cure. We know that all 4 of these genes are associated with autism. And we also know already that GRIA families have raised more than $50,000 for research through Cure GRIN. So as of today, we are officially changing Cure GRIN's mission. So from our mission of to find cures and treatments for people around the world living with GRIN disorder, we are adding GRIA disorder and GRIC disorder to our mission. And if we find patients with single gene GRID disorder, they'll be part of it as well. And so we have all these new faces joining us today. These are children living with GRIA disorder and GRIC disorder. So welcome to our family. We're really excited to have GRIA and GRIC members along with GRIN members as we move forward together as one community, working with researchers and scientists to find cures and treatments for our kids. So feel free, everyone, to use the chat to welcome our newest members. So as we go forward in terms of how we're incorporating GRI into how Cure GRIN works, this is Heather Cartwright. She's a GRIA 4 mom, and we've added her to the Cure GRIN board. When we rolled out our research roadmap a few months ago, we built it so that all of GRI is in scope. We've got changes coming to our website, to our Science and Medical Advisory Board. Future events are going to be focused on GRI, not just GRIN. You'll see some of that already today. And some of the other bigger questions, like what it means for our board of directors makeup and whether we will change our name, all those kinds of things. We're going to take time to think through strategically, and what we're going to come back and let you know and consult with families in terms of what we do with that. But as of today, really excited to be moving forward with this more inclusive Cure GRIN. Wanted to give an update on something that I announced a year ago. So a year ago, we announced that we were giving a $75,000 grant to CFIRV, which is the Center for Functional Evaluation of Rare Variants at Emory University in Atlanta. And we gave a $75,000 grant for them to do functional analysis on 50 variants. And so those have all been completed. So if you look at this chart here, you can see that there were 13 functional analyses done for GRIN1, 14 for GRIN2A, and 23 for GRIN2B. And you can also see the results. So among all of these genes, just doing the math really quickly, but I guess 14 across the 3 were likely gain of function, 21 were likely loss of function. There were 5 where the researchers could tell that the genetic variant altered what was going on in the receptor, but it wasn't clear whether it was a gain or a loss of function. And then there were 10 cases where it wasn't altered, at least using the methods that are used there. They couldn't see how through electrophysiology that there was any kind of change in the way that the gene functioned. So that's really important. We have a session later today that's talking about what gain of function and loss of function mean. So we think it's really important that more and more families are able to understand this. We recently unveiled our research roadmap, and there's a long presentation that we gave just after that was delayed. So I'm not going to get into it here. If you want the details, you can find that on the Cure GRIN YouTube channel. But basically, I'll go through some of the highlights quickly. That our goal was to identify and prioritize the specific questions that need to be answered in order to develop cures and treatments for GRI disorder. And we're doing this for 2 reasons. So one is to define how Cure GRIN invests resources, our time and money, but also to influence priorities for research, biotech, and other GRIN advocacy organizations. We did a family survey where we learned that the most important issues, and you'll see we included a small number of GRIA families here as well, but the most important things that families wanted us to focus on were intellectual disability and communication, epilepsy, and mood, behavior, and neurostorms. We're moving forward with a three-tiered approach that basically includes both gene therapy and drugs, some that target the NMDA receptors or the other AMPA or GRIC receptors directly, but some also that target the symptoms. And then we identified these 10 essential questions. And the reason I'm highlighting this again today is that when we were putting together the agenda for today's conference, we really built it around these 10 questions. So we tried to make sessions that would help us answer as much as possible the questions that we identified. So outcome measures and biomarkers. So this is about how do we know that any kind of treatment that we try to give our kids when we're trialing it is actually working. What is it we want to measure beyond epilepsy, and how do we measure it? How do we find biomarkers that can help make this easier for us? Is it possible for a cure at any age? There's some promising research that suggests that that there is a wide window, but we won't know until more research is done. For gene therapy, what's the best place to deliver it? How can we deliver gene therapy for larger genes? It's easier for smaller genes like GRIA and GRIC and GRIN1. It can be more difficult for the GRIN2 genes. What are the optimal drugs and molecules targeting NMDA receptors? Are there existing drugs that can be repurposed for GRI disorders? What symptoms are due to receptors outside of the brain? So for example, we know that most of what we talk about when we talk about GRIN disorder is what's going on with neurons in the brain. But there are NMDA receptors and GRI proteins in other parts of the body as well that may be contributing to some of the symptoms. So that's something that we want to look more into. How do we improve symptoms by targeting downstream? So, for example, is what's going on with our kids causing neuroinflammation, and is there a way to treat that? And then finally, what are the functional and phenotypic details for each variant? So, is each gene for each variant, is it gain of function or loss of function, and how is that tied to the symptoms that we see in our kids? So, as I mentioned, we're trying to build as much as that as possible into our agenda today. So our first session is, we're calling it GRI Families Unite. You'll get to hear from families with GRIN, GRIA, and GRIC. The second session is focused on gene therapy. And we've got two sessions today where there are kind of big announcements coming in terms of partnerships between families, industry, and researchers. And this is the first one. So really encourage you to be part of that. Then we start doing breakout sessions. So in the next session, I'll highlight here that there is a sibling chat. We have hosts, two hosts there, Connor and Abby. So encourage you to your children, and we're opening this to any age, so children or adults, siblings, please feel welcome to join there. We also have breakout sessions during the day in different languages, so you'll see the Italian session there is first. Then we've got a few other sessions, outcomes of biomarkers. We've got journey of life with GRIN disorder. We've got a session after that on what treatments are out there for GRIN patients, drugs and molecules. And this is another one where we are going to have some news from the biotech industry in terms of potentially exciting news related to GRIN research and potential treatments. And I won't go over all of this. Hopefully you've all seen the agenda. But I'll just note that at the end of the day, this is always popular. We have an Ask Me Anything session where we have three researchers, one of whom is also a physician, who will just basically be there to answer any questions, anything you want to know about any of the GRIs. And you can ask the questions there, and they'll try their best to answer them. And I just see in the chat, Calliope mentioned to join the breakout sessions. Click on breakout sessions on the left. And for language in the sibling chat session, click on language, meetup, and sibling chat on the left column. And there'll be a join button that will appear just before the sessions are about to start. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Denise Renner for our second announcement.
Hey guys, I'm Denise Renner. I'm the president of GRIN, and this is Brett. And he suddenly realized he's on camera, so he's putting on the charm. But I wanted to share with you some exciting news. We know that we've mentioned this online collaborative community, and we're excited to roll that out to you today, GRIN-Connect. There will be a demo. Keith will be demoing it later on in the afternoon, so please be sure to join that session. We will be adding the link here in the chat. Keith has added it, thank you. If you could please go ahead and register now so that on the back end we can go ahead and approve you so we could be more of a working session in that afternoon. And of course, my phone rings. So we're excited to share that news with you today. And I really want to also thank the Chan Zuckerberg Rare as One grant for providing the support to make this possible for our community. Next slide. Keith, can you advance? Are we stuck?
Yes. I'm just trying to find out where to do that. The window went really small on my screen again. You know what? I'm going to stop sharing it. Share it again.
Oh.
I'm going to share it again.
But as you do that, I'll just remind people that this community is for it's to connect with family members, with researchers, with clinicians. There's different discussion groups that you can participate, anything that you're interested in. And so we're really excited to be able to provide this platform that allows us, all the GRI community, all the different GRI genes, to be able to collaborate together and also talk with the different clinicians and researchers. And then we also want to remind you to save the date for our in-person conference in Boston in April. We're really looking forward to seeing people in person. You'll notice the pencil there is really to really say that we're you know, none of us is sure if we're going to be able to participate in person by that date. Right now, everybody knows the numbers are trending not in the right direction, but we're hopeful, and we're going to be monitoring very closely the COVID situation. We're also going to be putting out a survey for the families and the researchers to gauge people's comfort level for booking travel right now. And we'll be putting that survey out through our different platforms for email and social media. So we'd really love your feedback on your comfort level for booking for the spring. And many of you know that GRIN was fortunate enough to have received a 2-year grant from the Chan Zuckerberg Rare as One program, totaling $465,000, which is truly amazing. And it's been really crucial in helping us launch and grow our organization capacity. Just a reminder that the program itself is really on building the capacity, giving us Rare Foundation's tools, mentorship, training in order to help us grow and accelerate our progress. So it's really allowed us and other organizations to expand our research network and gain the skills and resources that we need to evolve the organization. So we're grateful. We're really grateful, but we're really excited to say that Chan Zuckerberg is opening up additional funding opportunity and is allowing us existing grantees to apply. So of course, we're going to be taking advantage of that application, and they're going to be making decisions in early December. So we will certainly let you know. Next slide, Keith. And I want to thank everybody who participated in our second annual Get Moving for GRIN this past July. We had families and some researchers participate in doing a half marathon, a full marathon, and some overachievers even did an ultra marathon in a month. We set a goal to raise $30,000, and we're just thrilled to say we knocked it out of the park. We raised over almost $55,000, and I want to give a huge shout out to Miles for Miles, the little Bonk family, who alone raised $27,000. Just truly, truly amazing how our friends and family and our network gather around and support our families. So thank you so much. And I want to remind people that we have these are our upcoming campaigns throughout the year. We have our Count Me GRIN that we typically do in November, but we also opened it up to really year round. You can do a campaign any time of the year, but we will be sending out communication for the Count Me GRIN again for November. And of course, we have the Giving Tuesday that's always popular end of year giving campaign. We will be participating in our third awareness month. We'll probably be renaming that to Agree Disorder. And then there's always the opportunities for year-round campaigns through Facebook, truly the easiest way to raise money to help support this really crucial research that's going to advance cures and treatments for our disease. Amazon Smile, everybody orders on Amazon, truly a really easy way to support GRIN research. And I think that's it for this slide. Oh, and then we do have a grand prize for any of the campaigns that you participate in throughout, by March. For every family that raises $2,500, you get one entry for the grand prize, which is a luxury suite at our upcoming conference. Whether we hold it in April or at another time, you will still get your luxury suite. So that's truly exciting. For every $500 over $2,500 that you raise, you get an additional entry. So increase your chances of winning. Next slide. And then I just want to remind everybody, people ask all the time, how can they help? For families, it's submitting your kids' information for our registries. Those are both on our website based on what region you're located in. Creating a fundraiser we talked about. And we really hope to see you in the spring in Boston. And if you have any special skills or talents to volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers. There's no shortage of work to be done. And stay connected with us. Follow us on social media. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter to stay up to date on really important announcements throughout the year. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have up next, we're going to share the Greece family stories, and that's going to be right here on the main stage. So you don't have to go anywhere, just stay here, and we're going to start our next session, and we're going to hear from some amazing families that I think we can all really relate to. Thank you. Say bye. Bye, Brett.